Okay, so picture this. You're just trying to have a nice, healthy snack. You're feeling pretty good about yourself for picking a piece of fruit instead of, that bag of chips. You peel back that bright yellow banana, you're about to take a bite,
And just like that, your perfectly healthy snack is technically trying to hit you with a tiny bit of radiation. Now relax. You're not actually in any danger. But we really need to talk about the secret life of the stuff in your fruit bowl.
All right, let's start by profiling our main suspect. On the surface, it seems totally and completely innocent.
Come on, look at it. It's yellow, it's cute, it's the go-to food for cartoon monkeys. You're not going to find any warning labels on the peel. There's no little skull and crossbones. It is the very picture of harmlessness.
But here's the thing. It emits actual, measurable, scientific radiation. And let's be super clear, we're not talking about bad vibes or something spiritual. Note, scientists legitimately classify bananas as radioactive objects, for real. So how did this happen? How did our sweet, innocent banana turn into a low-level radioactive source? Well, to understand that, we need to meet the real villain of the story.
That's right. The culprit is an ingredient you probably already know and love. Potassium. The very thing that makes bananas so good for you is also what makes them radioactive. But here's the catch. Not all potassium is created equal.
To really get this, we need a quick science lesson on something called isotopes. Just think of them like different versions of the same element, kind of like siblings in the same family. They're all potassium, but they've got slightly different personalities.
So most of the potassium in the universe is totally stable. It's chill, it's just doing its thing. But a tiny, tiny fraction of it is this other version, this anxious sibling called potassium-40. It's unstable, and because it's so unstable, it's constantly falling apart. And every single time it breaks down, it releases a little puff of energy. And that's what we call radiation.
So, your average banana is basically a potassium hoarder. It's packing about 450 milligrams of the stuff. Now, a very, very tiny slice of that is the unstable potassium-40. It's not much, but it's just enough for a scientist with a Geiger counter to point at it and say, yep, that one's radioactive.
Okay, so this obviously brings us to the big question. The one that's probably been bouncing around in your head since I first said the word radioactive. Let's just get right to it. If you eat one, are you a goner? Is this it? Should you start saying your goodbyes?
The answer is no, absolutely not. Stop being so dramatic. Seriously, it's not even remotely close to being dangerous. To get a lethal dose of radiation from bananas, you'd have to eat literally millions of them, all at once.
And let's be honest, at that point, radiation poisoning would be the least of your problems. Your stomach would have already quit its job, your intestines would have filed a formal complaint, and you would have died from a massive potassium overdose long before the radiation even mattered.
And now, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the kitchen and pass judgment on that banana, it is time for the plot twist.
Because while you've been sitting here pointing a finger at this innocent piece of fruit, you have completely overlooked a much more radioactive character in this story.
That's right. You, me, every single person on this planet. We all have potassium in our bodies. We need it to function. And that means every single one of us has a tiny bit of that anxious potassium-40 inside us too. We are all walking, talking, very low-level sources of radiation. Right now.
You know, this whole thing is so well known that scientists actually turned it into a unit of measurement. It's called the banana equivalent dose, or BED for short. And it's a real thing. Hospitals use it to help people understand radiation exposure from things like x-rays. A doctor might say, this chest x-ray is about the same as eating 50 bananas. It kind of puts it all in perspective, doesn't it?
And hey, the banana isn't alone in this little radioactive club. Potatoes, beans, nuts, even beer are all slightly radioactive for the exact same reason. The banana just kind of became the poster child for this whole thing because it's so common and easy to measure. It never asked for this life, It just wanted to be in a smoothie.
So at this point you might be thinking, okay, that's a pretty fun, kind of useless fact to share at a party, but why does any of this actually matter? Well, it turns out this little piece of trivia serves a much, much bigger purpose.
The radioactive banana is actually the perfect, most friendly science teacher you could ask for. It's used all the time to explain the basics of radiation, to help people understand really complex ideas like half-life, and maybe most importantly, to help calm fears about things like nuclear energy by putting low-level radiation into a context we can all understand.
It really is a simple but powerful benchmark.
The thinking is, if you can happily peel and eat a banana without breaking a sweat, then you can understand that not all radiation is some kind of movie monster out to get you.
The reality is, we are constantly surrounded by low-level background radiation. It's coming from space, it's coming from the ground beneath our feet, it's in the food we eat, and as we just found out, it's even coming from our own bodies. This is just a totally normal part of living on planet Earth.
So, the most important point is this. The word radiation itself isn't what's dangerous. The real danger comes from things like the dose, the duration of exposure, and the type of radiation. Understanding that context is way more important than just fearing the word. The banana is harmless. The real toxin is uninformed fear.
So the next time someone offers you a banana, you can look them right in the eye and say, "Careful, that thing is radioactive." And then you can eat it anyway, like the fearless, slightly glowing legend that you now know you are.